Welcome back to this Price of Business. I am your host, Kevin Price. Already the last segment for today's show, and it's been a good one. I got to tell you, I was geeking out with Charles Cook. Really enjoyed that. I always enjoy all my interviews, and all of them were great today. But that was particularly fun. I do want to encourage you to check out the book, Conservatarian Manifesto. Look up conservatarian.com. All right, lots of big stories. I could talk about over last week the decision on gay marriage in the Supremes. I'm going to pass on that. I can't believe that they don't believe in the diversity of opinion of allowing states to choose their own destiny in this area. Other than that, I'm not going to elaborate much on it right now. But I am going to talk about the fact that something that has gotten on the back burner but should be on the front burner every single day, which is the growing fears around ISIS. And ISIS is getting more and more aggressive. Its focus is less and less on the Middle East, and it's looking around the world. And it wasn't that long ago that ISIS threatened to find that it was going to go after Rome soon. Let me tell you, a group that hates great art that is religious in nature, like a group like ISIS, that should send fears and chills down the spine of everyone. Now we've got this from what's happened last week of an ISIS attack. This is from Fox News.
More about the Fox News alert out of France, another terror attack there in that country. So far we know this: 1 dead, 2 others injured when the terrorists attacked a gas plant in southeastern France. That plant owned by an American company. A car rammed the gates, causing an explosion. A severed head was left on a gate. That severed head, we are told, belonged to a local businessman, although unclear whether or not the head was brought to the scene or he was killed there. Multiple suspects are in custody, including the man who drove the car. Found at the scene 2 flags with Arabic writing. They were near the body of the beheading victim. This comes just months after the deadly Charlie Hebdo and Jewish grocery store attacks in Paris. Ambassador John Bolton is the former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, also a Fox News contributor, joins us now. Obviously, it's still very early, but as you put these 3 attacks together, France, Tunisia, and Kuwait, it's hard to believe that it's a coincidence, especially during Ramadan.
Well, I think that's right. And remember, ISIS yesterday attacked Kobani in northern Syria in a terrorist attack, the scene of battles months ago with the Kurds. So I think there's good reason to believe this is ISIS or ISIS-inspired. In France, as you say, look at the targets here. An American company, that could be significant. In Tunisia, a tourist area very popular with Europeans, including French, obviously. Tunisia, a former French colony. Think of the Bali, Indonesia terrorist attack some years ago. And in Kuwait, interestingly, ISIS has claimed responsibility. They're attacking a Shia mosque in predominantly Sunni Kuwait. So I think this is ISIS demonstrating the war on terror, the terrorist attack on the West, and institutions in the Islamic world that disagree with him is very much on.
When you look specifically, as we think about what's happening in France and the idea that the French had this guy under surveillance at one point, and then for lack of a better term, he kind of fell off the map. Now all of a sudden has carried out this attack. Does this go to a little bit more of the point of how difficult it is to stop any of these lone wolves? France, for that matter, has thousands of people right now of its nationals fighting for ISIS. Hard to keep track of all those guys who come home.
Yeah, and he was a guy apparently without a criminal record. So I think it goes right to the heart of the conceptual dispute that we still have in this country. Is this a war against the terrorists, or is this a law enforcement matter? If you think somebody is engaged in hostilities against your country, planning a terrorist attack, that puts him in a different position than somebody robbing the local 7-Eleven. So I think this is a very important point. I think we've seen in this country excellent efforts by law enforcement to prevent terrorist attacks in recent years. But as ISIS gains control of territory in what used to be Syria and Iraq, we already know thousands of Europeans and Americans have apparently gone there, perhaps receiving training, getting back into this country in Europe because they have valid passports. I think the risk here is going to increase in the coming days.
And you think about a place like Tunisia that went through the Arab Spring but had been making steps towards democracy, had been considered at least somewhat of a success story, and now you realize that there is a terrorist attack on a beach, a popular resort town, in a place not far from Libya, somewhere that ISIS has also tried to gain a foothold.
Well, exactly. And you mentioned earlier the previous attack some months back on the National Museum in Tunis itself. Also, obviously, a favorite tourist destination. So Tunisia, the only spot of the Arab Spring that anybody claims any real success out of, obviously a symbol for ISIS, too. They want to demonstrate that, that they can reach even deep into that country.
Attacking on Ramadan when we know that at least some folks believe that they get extra points, if you will, to carry out jihad, as sick as that sounds, during this holy month. We'll see what develops over the coming days as well. Ambassador Bolton, we appreciate your time, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's interesting. And by the way, obviously you're hearing audio. You're not seeing what we're seeing here, but it was interesting to see the map and how close Tunisia is to Italy. Libya, very close to Italy. Just a few weeks ago, I wrote an article at the Huffington Post called "The ISIS Strategy to Seize Rome Unfolds." Back in February of this year, the terrorist organization ISIS announced that it intended to invade Rome. It said that, and a lot of people laughed. The International Business Times reported that as the Islamic State group expands its reach into Libya, the group, also known as ISIS, sits on the doorstep of a nation that has one of the largest Muslim populations in Europe, Italy. The militant group threatened to seize Rome in a video released back in February, showing the beheading of 21 Coptic Christians from Egypt in Libya. And although the number of foreign fighters from Italy operating in Iraq and Syria, where ISIS has established a so-called caliphate, is on the lower end among Western European nations, Islamic extremism in Italy may grow as ISIS makes an effort to recruit in the country. Now, when I heard about that bold statement, I thought that was a bit too much. True, ISIS successes have exceeded the expectations of virtually everyone, but this pronouncement had a ring of hubris to it. How in the world could they successfully attack Rome? Well, events in Libya and southern Europe are beginning to show how such an event could happen. Libya is relatively close to Italy geographically, and since the terror group has occupied much of North Africa's, the African country, people are leaving Libya in a mass exodus. This mass migration has created a new growth industry in Libya, the illegal smuggling of people to southern Europe destinations to flee ISIS. How significant is this new business? Well, NPR noted that it's a booming business. A report released by the Global Initiative Against Transorganizational Crime shows that it's about a $323 million a year business. Guess who's behind it? ISIS itself. They're the ones who are bringing people over. Seems logical to me that they could use those ships and use that smuggling business to bring over thousands of their own terrorists in preparation for such an attack. I think Europe is very interesting to ISIS. I think the problem of ISIS being more than just a Middle Eastern problem is going to grow and grow exponentially. What's very important to a terrorist group like this, is to continuously have the attention of the West. And if they keep on attacking those in the Middle East, eventually there'll be a yawn by the West. And we're already seeing some of that. It's almost like a form of fatigue on the Western media as they watch this. And as a result, they're going to have to attack the West if they're going to get our attention. At least that's what they're thinking. And so what you saw in France is going to become more and more common. And I think eventually you're going to see some large-scale activity in Italy that's going to be rather devastating. And that's just kind of reading the tea leaves, if you will. All right, that's the program. Glad to be with you. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. And I look forward to being with you tomorrow right here on The Price of Business.